My credit card setup just changed. Between diving into a new ecosystem earlier this year and now adding a card that's completely outside of my usual playbook, this is probably my biggest shift I've made in a while. But with major spend and international trips coming up, it was time for a shakeup. So in this video, we'll talk about what's in my wallet right now, how I'm optimizing my spend and rewards over the next few months, the new card that's shifting my strategy, and what might be coming up next. Kicking things off with a card I added earlier this year and still holds a prime spot in my wallet, the Citi Strata Premier. This card marked a bit of a shift in strategy for me, as up until this point I've never had a Citi card before. But with its strong 3x categories in restaurants, air travel, hotels, supermarkets, and even gas and EV charging, it quickly became a go-to card for a big portion of my spend. In fact, it's even displaced one of my other cards that we'll touch on later. But what makes this card especially exciting is the expansion to Citi's ecosystem, where with the addition of American Airlines as a transfer partner, Citi thank you points just got more valuable. Unfortunately, that doesn't help me right now because I've already used up all the points I've earned here. Despite this being a relatively new card in my setup, I've already redeemed the 100,000 or so points that I've earned from the welcome bonus and regular spend. Thanks to the 20% transfer bonus over to Flying Blue, I was able to book 2 flights in business class to Paris and Milan later next year, just 60,000 miles per person in Air France business class. This card essentially paid for 2 flights costing just over $2,000 each for a total value of over $4,000 by spending how I usually would spend anyways. Even if you were to cut that value in half, that's still some incredible value for a mid-tier travel card with a $95 annual fee. It's a great example of the power of choosing the right card to earn valuable points and then maximizing those points in the right way. That said, not everything has been perfect, because I have yet to find a good use of the $100 hotel credit given the restrictions on minimum spend and having to use their portal, where I haven't been able to find many deals that I can find elsewhere, especially with my Asia trip later this year. So year 1, the $95 annual fee, easily justifiable. But year 2 and onwards, depending on my spend, the multipliers themselves could make up for it, but we'll have to see. What is easily justifiable year after year though is my Capital One Venture X card, where between the $300 travel credit, which I've already used for some domestic flights earlier this year within Thailand, and the 10,000 miles anniversary bonus valued at least $100 in travel, both combined already exceed the annual fee, and that's not even considering all of the other benefits. I've also continued to find that prices through the Capital One travel portal have been the most similar to other sites like Google or third parties, in addition to having price drop protection, which has kicked in for me in the past. And because of that, of course, this card has still held strong in my wallet over the last 4 years, as my go-to card for 2x miles on everything that does not fall into a 3x category that exists on one of my other cards. But the biggest downside here is what's coming in early 2026, the loss of free guest access to Capital One and Priority Pass lounges. Unless you hit a high yearly spend threshold, which I do not, that's a massive devaluation, especially when I travel in groups quite often, typically bringing anywhere between 3 to 5 people in at once. While I still have my Amex Platinum card for lounge access with guests, it's something I will have to account for. That leaves 2 more cards ideally in my wallet, one of which has had the longest tenure, and that's the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. And while it's still a solid mid-tier travel card, I'm finding myself using it less and less. It's 2x on travel, well I can get 3x on air travel and hotels on my Strata Premier, and 2x on my Venture X. 3x on dining, well that same thing exists on the Strata Premier also. And the $50 annual hotel credit has not been easy to use. Time and time again, I'm seeing that Chase hotel prices are not comparable to direct bookings, reputable other travel sites, or even my employer's corporate codes. So then what do I still use this card for? 2 things come to mind. 1, Chase is still special in that you only have to pay a part of your fare in order to trigger certain travel protections, whereas most other cards require you to pay the entire fare. This comes in really handy when booking award flights with points and then paying those taxes and fees with a card. And two, this card may not be the best card for me right now, but Chase points are still at the top. And this card is what unlocks transferring to travel partners if I ever need to at a moment's notice. Still, even with those two reasons, it's something I'll have to reevaluate going forward. And then the card that comes and goes, the Chase Freedom Flex card, primarily being used for the rotating 5 times points in quarterly categories up to $1,500 of spend per quarter. Right now, the standout category for me is EV charging, so I swapped that card in for now to pay for those charges, but during quarters that have big categories like Amazon and PayPal, that's where this card gets the most use. So altogether, I'm earning at least 2 times on all spend, with most of my spend actually having 3 times points, and building up more flexible point currencies across a variety of ecosystems that will give me freedom of choice on where and how to redeem them in the future. Although that mix is about to change because I've added a new card that takes me in a totally different direction we'll touch on. But first, beyond just earning points and stacking perks, it's the actual experiences they unlock that truly matter. And here's how I've been putting those rewards to use lately. One big one is my upcoming trip to Asia and Australia later this year. And I especially want to highlight the international airlines program that comes with my Amex Platinum card, which offers discounts on premium fares on some of the world's best airlines, and it came in clutch here. Because award space between Taiwan and Australia was basically non-existent for the dates I needed. I looked into paid options, but the cash prices were around $2,000 each. Not a deal. That's when I checked the Amex travel portal and found the same flights for $1,100 each, saving nearly $900 per person. And on top of that, you'll still earn 5 times points when booking that way. So now anytime I'm booking a premium flight and award space is limited, I'll be sure to check the Amex travel portal just in case. As for the rest of the flights on this trip, I've pieced them together using programs like Aeroplan, Singapore KrisFlyer, and EVA Infinity mileage lines, all fueled by the flexible points I've earned throughout the years. On the hotel side though, the challenge hasn't been a lack of options, but too many options. And this is where decision fatigue comes in, and the downside I always mention of having too many perks and benefits to juggle between. To list them all, whenever I'm booking hotels, I could either use the $200 hotel credit from my Amex Platinum card, which works on fine hotels and resorts or the Hotel Collection hotels, the $300 annual travel credit towards the Capital One travel portal from my Venture X, which I fortunately already used earlier this year, so I can just forget about it for now. More recently, the $100 hotel credit on my Citi Strata Premier, although only through their portal and with some restrictions, the $50 hotel credit on my Chase Sapphire Preferred through their portal, reputable booking sites like Booking.com or Priceline, which have typically had great pricing and allows for some cashback portals, and corporate rates from my employer, which can be surprisingly competitive. That's a lot, and in reality, a lot of these travel portals don't have the best pricing, especially when you consider the restrictions. That's why I've pretty much written off the $50 hotel credit on my Sapphire Preferred, and honestly, even the Citi Strata Premier's $100 hotel credit has started to fall off my radar, leaving my Amex hotel credit, reputable booking sites, and corporate codes to make it a bit more manageable. And even within those, it's not always straightforward. For example, the Amex FHR benefits, you typically get breakfast for 2. But I'm traveling in a group of 3, so I have to consider that difference as well. Fortunately, these corporate codes have been incredible, like slashing the price per night at the Ritz-Carlton Melbourne almost in half and allowing cancellations up until the stay, which has helped me narrow down my options a little bit as well. All of this just has me rethinking the true value I get from all of these smaller credits. The $200 Amex hotel credit, pretty much always top of mind, but the $50 one from my Sapphire Preferred, sometimes it's just not worth the extra mental bandwidth. Which brings me to the most recent move I've made, which does somewhat add more complexity and deviates from my typical flexible point strategy. For years, I've stuck to cards that earn flexible points like with Chase, Capital One, American Express, and Citi, giving me that freedom to decide where and how to use those points later on. But this time, I picked up a hotel card that earns Marriott Bonvoy points, which are not flexible and pretty much only valuable through Marriott's own ecosystem. And that's with the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card. So why the shift? Well, first, I've already gone through most of the good flexible point cards out there, so the pool of strong options wasn't that big. And if I were to add a non-flexible points card anyways, I may as well lean into a program I'm already familiar with. I've stayed with Marriott a lot over the years, with about 200 lifetime stays, so continuing to build on that is not a bad thing. The strong global footprint also makes it easy to find a solid hotel anywhere I go. And there was an elevated offer giving 5 free night certificates up to 50,000 points each after spending $5,000 in the first 3 months. For a mid-tier card with a $95 annual fee, that's a lot of upfront value. And with high spend coming up, I knew I could hit that bonus pretty quickly, which would unlock the possibility to use those certificates for my trip later this year. Beyond that, the card also gives me an annual free night certificate up to 35,000 points each, although with any of these certificates, I could top up to an extra 15,000 points if I needed to, easily offsetting the $95 annual fee. 15 Elite Night credits towards status, which also stacks towards lifetime nights. And Silver Elite status, although I already have Gold status through my Amex Platinum card. When I do pay cash for Marriott stays, especially when using corporate rates, this card will help me earn even more points thanks to elevated earning rates when spending at Marriott properties. So yes, this card does add one more thing to track, but unlike those random portal credits, these free night certificates are more tangible and less restrictive, especially knowing I at least travel a few times a year. And with the capability to top up points and book solid hotels across their strong global footprint, whether for this year or next year in Paris and Milan, I'm confident I'll make the most out of them. It's definitely a shift away from my usual flexible point strategy, but one with a solid foundation and reason behind it. Speaking of strategy, now that I've made 2 pivots this year, first adding Citi to my lineup and then locking in value, and more recently adding a hotel card that doesn't earn flexible points. The question is, what happens next? Well, one common tip is to plan ahead, especially when you know you'll have even more high spend coming up. In this case, for my trip later this year and then holiday season right after. So here are a few cards that I'm eyeing. First, the confirmed Alaska Airlines Premium card is top of my radar for its release in August 2025. Alaska's reward program still offers some solid sweet spot redemptions, especially for premium cabins like booking JAL, Cathay Pacific, or Starlux, all great ways to cross over to Asia. The Global Companion Certificate can come in handy, given I usually travel with at least one other person, though I'm not sure what the cap will be there, even though you can top up like with the Marriott certificates, so we'll have to see. The card's 3 times miles on foreign spend is also a strong fit for me, given how often I travel up to Canada or even abroad. Faster status earning and Alaska lounge passes comes in useful as well, especially when I fly out of an Alaska hub like SeaTac so often, where my only lounge access right now is the Centurion Lounge, which I get no guests for, or very outdated Priority Pass lounges. Then there's the Citi Strata Elite, which is more interesting now that American Airlines is a Citi partner. Although it bumps up the value of Citi points a bit, the card itself is still just okay, with multipliers not being too far off from my existing cards. There are a few perks that could be useful, like the hotel credit, Citi night spend, a splurge credit maybe towards Best Buy, and then Admiral's Club lounge access. But all of those come with more restrictions to juggle and again, things to track. And I'm also thinking of, instead of holding the Sapphire Preferred card, maybe it's time to switch that out for the Sapphire Reserve, especially if that elevated offer sticks around. With its nice and elevated points booking travel either direct or through their portal, the flexible travel credit, a $500 credit towards the Edit Hotel collection, which would probably be prioritized on par with the hotel credit I have on my Amex Platinum card, and the $300 dining credit, which I'd be sure to use given we already enjoy eating at new and nice restaurants anyways. And of course, this depends on how the rest of the credit card world evolves. Like the new built lineup of cards, which unfortunately won't be out until February 2026, possible Amex card refreshes later this year, or even new cards that would just drop out of nowhere. Maybe like a premium Wells Fargo card. And then there's always the option of the strong evergreen cards like the Capital One Saver card or the Citi Custom Cash. Both great tools for some strong everyday spend earnings, but if I'm going to have a lot of high spend anyways, I'd rather shoot for a bigger return through bonuses. So even though my strategies evolved from flexible points to now exploring other options, the core goal has not changed. It's still about making sure my spend gets rewarded and turning those rewards into premium flights, hotel stays, or even lifestyle spend. And to see how I've been unlocking those incredible experiences step by step, check out this video here and I'll see you over there.